Good evening and welcome to Real World News TV. My name is Shara Ann Tappan, and joining me this evening, we have our surprise guest star, Tony Breedlove. Reggie Kearney seems to be running a little delayed tonight, so we're going to get the show started. Good evening, Tony. How are you?
Good evening, Jara and Tubbin. How are you?
Tired as a mofo. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie.
I can times that by two over here.
hmm
Yeah, it has
That
been a
time of
rough
year
day.
when you sit at your desk too long and your knees hurt. It's hot, it's cold, it's hot, it's cold. It's just, I can't.
Yeah, well, I don't need a specific time of year for that. Uh, so, but thanks for letting me fill in for Reggie while we wait for him to come on. He is running a little late. Um,
Can we do a James Brown on him and fine him for
I
being
know.
late? $5. $5.
I thought that was Ike. I
Yeah, I
thought
think they
that was
both did it.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what we'll do. So what we got on tap tonight for the show?
Uh, well, tonight we're going to be talking about parental responsibility when children commit crimes, and I guess what this is born out of obviously is the two recent cases that have come up recently: the mass shooting in Michigan, as well as the Kyle Rittenhouse case, and past cases.
Right.
Um, it's just surreal to me that we know that there are truancy laws, right? And that in some
Mhm.
states and in some counties, they're particularly aggressive, and usually it's in low income and minority counties. But we do know that the law exists where if your child is
Mhm.
repeatedly, good evening, Jacqueline, truant,
Hi,
they
Jacqueline.
can fine or arrest the parents. I guess in some
Mhm.
instances, maybe even call CPS and, use however big a hammer they want to. Here we have multiple instances throughout the
Mhm.
country where a child has gained access to a parent's gun, or the parent, in their infinite wisdom, thought it wise to buy a gun for their child, who then goes to school and decides to, shoot people. Um, it's it's no surprise to me as parents we're oblivious to the warning signs, considering their state of mind and the things that
Mhm.
I think we can surmise that they support.
Mhm.
Big Trump supporters writing letters that are
Right.
pro Second Amendment and all of this other craziness. I don't know if if they're QAnon supporters or what have you, but clearly negligent parents to some degree. If the
Yeah.
teachers could see warning signs and drawings, good evening, James. How is it that the
Hey,
parents
James.
didn't? And then we know from the timeline of events that at some point the parents became aware that the child took the gun from home and brought it to school, texting saying, don't do it. But it just seems like a colossal failure in every corner you look at. I think the teachers might have tried, although it was a day late and a dollar short, because they suddenly become aware of these issues the day that the shooting happens. Or has it not been reported that they
You know
have
what?
mentioned
No, they
things
knew.
previously in the
They knew.
year?
They knew.
So here they had a young Dylan Roof in the making, and nobody did anything. The system completely failed.
First of all, Jared, they knew.
Mm.
It was before. I mean, I don't buy the act that just one day, all of a sudden, all of this information was discovered.
Mhm.
You knew this child had behavioral issues prior to that one day.
At least depression, if he felt that
Prior to that.
alienated from his peers. Um, and I thought I read something that he was picked on as well when he was younger. But the interesting thing is, I guess it's funny when they. I don't want to be dismissive of this young man's mental angst, whatever it was born out of. If he was bullied, dropped as a baby, whatever it is. But fortunately for us, 98% of the people who are bullied in schools don't turn out to be mass shooters
No, they
or
don't.
serial killers. Um,
They don't.
Jesus, if I mean, I was bullied all through elementary school, junior high school, some of college. I mean, some of high school. By
Well,
college, I
all
was
of
like, I'm
us,
done. All right. But
but yeah, all of us have been exposed to or have experienced bullying at some point of in our life. It doesn't
right,
necessarily have to be that we were bullied as a child. We're
you know,
bullied every
but
day when we go to work as
very
adults.
true. But we're the snowflakes.
So,
But we're the
but
snowflakes.
but the thing is that I mean, and I don't want to make light of bullying because it's real.
Mhm.
Some people mentally cannot, they can't cope. They don't know how to compartmentalize certain things, to mentally think things through, okay, without thinking, oh, well, let me just grab a gun and let me just shoot up everybody. Some people don't know how to do that. So, again, I don't want to make light of it. I don't want to say it doesn't happen. It happens. But these things happen over a period of time, and you are able to see the changes in people. You're
Mhm.
able to see um, not only just their physical. It's a physical change that goes on, but the way they begin to speak to you over a period of time, if they're suffering in that way, that's a clue. If
Absolutely.
they become withdrawn, whereas they used to be, somewhat outgoing, those are signs. And you can't tell me that all of a sudden with this young man, what's his last name? Hell, I don't have anything in
Crumley.
front of me.
Crumley.
Crumley. You can't tell me that over a course of time, all of a sudden, now one day, you've got a series of pictures in front of you that this child has drawn, with all violent connotations to it. You can't tell me that all of a sudden now he has behavioral problems and now you're just now seeing it. No, this has been going on. And it's not so much as did the school administrators take hold of this. It also has to do with his parents.
Mhm.
Here we're looking at parents that were told on that day, look, we got a problem. We're
Mhm.
suggesting that you take the child to go get some help right now. And what do?
They couldn't
They
be
say, oh no,
bothered.
he,
Yeah.
he can go back to class.
Yeah.
He can go back to class. What idiot parent would think you're going to send this kid back into a classroom? He's got a backpack with him. He's been acting out and acting up. Come on.
It's
And if the
funny that
school
all the
administrators felt so badly about what was going on, if they had complete fear to suggest that parents take that kid out of that school, at some point they should have checked the backpack. If they did not, then you hold that kid and those parents there and you call the authorities
Mhm.
because he's a threat. He's
Yeah,
told
but
you he's a threat.
they only call authorities on black girls who talk back to their teacher. They only call the authorities on 6-year-old boys who say no to their teachers and act out and put them in handcuffs. But this was, I hate the fact that this is a fact, but it is a fact that there is less of a tendency to associate criminality with white people and white children than there are people of color. Where do the mass shootings happen? Columbine, Michigan. That's not Detroit. That's not New York. That's not Harlem. But they're the ones that have the metal detectors to get into school.
Right.
And it's no surprise to me when you have a clearly neglected child. They fed him. He had 3 squares and a roof over his head, but he was psychologically and emotionally and spiritually neglected. And if the parents are these gun-loving Second Amendment MAGA, fill in the rest yourself,
Oh,
then
yeah.
it's no surprise to me that a child growing up in that kind of environment thinks, "Ooh, gun, solution to my problem." But yet they
Hmm.
still point to the communities of color as if we're the problem. And I was looking at the statistics earlier today. And what was it? Some astronomically high number. Let's see here. 95% of mass shootings are done by male perpetrators. 54% of them are done by white male. 29% are in the workplace. 25% are in schools. And the average age is 33. Since that's the average, you have to ask yourself how many of them
How
are
many in
under
workplace?
20.
Right.
And then 1 in 4 mass shooting victims were children or teens. And 1 in 3 mass shootings involved a shooter that was legally prohibited from owning a firearm.
Owning a handgun. Right.
But yet, still, these states are against common sense gun legislation. Michigan doesn't even have a law that requires gun owners to secure their weapons at home. No lockbox, you
Oh,
know.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was reading something about that in this case, and I'll see if I can find the language of it. But I mean,
That's
it's
nuts.
just, it's nuts. It's insane. That's why I'm convinced that there is a part of the 1% that literally wants us to take us out one way or another, by hook or by crook. If it's not going to be
But
by
see,
food, water.
that might be true. That might be true. However, when you say taking us out one by one, it's these little white children that are taking folks out one by one in school shootings. Come on. And they're taking babies with them, young
You know,
people.
the unfortunate thing, I mean, it's not the unfortunate thing, but an unfortunate side note is that obviously we clearly have a problem in our own communities with teenagers and gun violence, and children being shot that have nothing to do with gang violence sitting out on their porch.
Exactly.
We're not going to deny this. And I think that is indicative of a I think the end result is the same in the psychology or psychopathy, saying that owning a gun and using a gun is the solution. The why behind it, I think, is different. The impetus for how that happens is different. But you've got these children who are growing up with all intents and purposes with privilege and losing
Don't
the
get me
plot
going.
altogether.
Don't get
But
me
that but but
going.
but that's not a subject. We don't talk about white on white crime. We don't talk about you know uh, the problem in the heart of white America with children losing their mind and going to school with guns and shooting people up. That's not a thing yet.
Because I find it funny that you would say that, because I think was it last week that you guys had someone on and they were basically, one guy was really good. He was in
Oh,
here
the guy who got
talking
me
the way
heated.
he should, right? But then
Mhm.
he brings up white on white crime. Um,
He brought
and
up
then it's
black on
all of a
black crime.
sudden that the room falls apart. Or black on black crime, but
Yeah.
won't mention white on white crime. And we see white on white crime every time a 15-year-old or 16-year-old shoots up a
A
schoolhouse.
school, a
But
movie
you don't
theater,
bring that up.
a school, a
Right.
Hey,
movie theater, a grocery store. I mean, this is happening quite frequently, and yet
It
still
goes
this isn't
on and
considered a
on,
thing.
on and on.
Nice of you to join us, Reggie.
No,
I'm glad to see you're
glad you're
okay.
here. I'm gonna duck out.
no, you don't have to duck out. You can stay.
Yeah, because I was
You're
starting to
you're,
worry.
Huh?
you're
No, 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 no.
but since the subject was parental responsibility, we do know that there are some laws in I forget which one is it, that there is a law that states that parents do bear a significant amount of responsibility for ensuring that their children are in school, and this law can be used. Let's see, the U.S. Supreme Court held that parents have a fundamental right to rear their children without undue interference from the government. That's Pierce versus Society of Sisters in 1925. But that same decision, the court upheld the power of the states to force parents to ensure that their children go to school. On top of that, there was some other legislation that said that parents are obligated to, what was the word? Ensure that they're raising their children right so that they don't commit crimes. And some
Right.
parents have argued that how can you hold us responsible if we don't know they're committing the crime? But the
Well,
inference is that if you were raising them right to begin with, they wouldn't have.
okay. So this is the first case, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that parents are being held responsible for this heinous type crime. Okay. And it's going to set precedents, for parents to take responsibility of knowing what your children are doing. We become lax as parents. Black parents are still beating their children, so they too afraid to go out here and shoot up a schoolhouse. But you've got some of these little white kids, that are being raised by parents who have such a right wing attitude on everything that has to do with not only education, gun laws, uh, how we live as a society and how this world should be set up and be divided uh, between black and white. But then we see the differences between black and white, where these little children that they're raising, they think that they can just let them go and let them run free. Here, little Johnny, take a gun. Here, I'm buying this for you for Christmas. And little Johnny doesn't know how to discern between right and wrong. And he goes into a classroom and he kills his classmates. Nobody wants to take responsibility, not the school administration, not the parents themselves. But this is going to set precedents for this type of behavior. It has to stop. Somewhere along the line, it has to stop.
So I
I'm
found the
gone.
language. No, don't go. I found the language. So each state imposes legal responsibility on parents and legal guardians for the delinquent and criminal acts of minors in their charge. Parental responsibility statutes have been in effect in the U.S. for 100 years. Many arose out of or supplemented laws that prohibited contributing to the delinquency of a minor. So how is buying a gun for an underage child or giving access to your gun to an underage child not contributing to the delinquency of a minor?
It is contributing. See, okay, so this would be the last thing I say. These laws, when it has to do with the responsibility, you don't find little black kids going out here shooting up schoolhouses. You don't hear about it. Hell, if it happens, hell, I haven't heard about it. But those laws are the way of giving an out to when it happens. Read back over it again. There are complete outs and room for wiggle in what you just read.
The
And it's
problem
not
I
going to be
have,
good for these little black kids. It's not.
I agree with holding parents responsible. And just like with all things in this country, if things were done and applied equitably, it'd be one thing. But we know that if there is a shift, hey, mommy, if there is a shift
Hi,
and
mommy.
they enforce responsibility on the parents for when children commit crimes, we shouldn't be surprised then when we see more parents of color being fined up the wazoo or going to jail because of the actions of their children for those
That
instances,
I
like in
that I
Chicago
agree.
and Atlanta.
That I agree.
And on the one hand, I was like, oh crap, that would be really bad for the community. And then on the other hand, I thought, you know what? Maybe this will help people get their shit together because parents don't want to be fined or held accountable. Problem is, some of these are low income households that can't afford the fines to
They
begin
can't
with.
afford the fine.
So then they're going to wind up in jail because they can't pay the fines in one of these states where the fine just accrues and accrues and accrues, and it becomes it's the notion of justice in that situation has just gone out the window because they're just filling a bed in one of these prisons for profit. Nothing in the system addresses the notion of recidivism, whether it's bad parenting or people or children who commit crimes. Reggie joining the show now. What are your thoughts?
Well, the only reason these parents is this is going to be the only case, and there won't be any more cases uh, where the parents get
You don't
charged. The
think
only
so?
reason, no, I don't, because the only reason these parents are getting charged because it was enough stuff left hanging that it pointed to them being a prime, being totally responsible for this kid doing what they did. I mean, they're accessories to these murders and everything, because the kid, you know, they allow the kid to go on social media to announce to the world that he got this little gun for Christmas. Look at my beauty, and he did a whole lot of other stuff that really put the parents out there. Okay, which really showed that the parents had a part in this, and parents could have probably squashed the whole thing if the mother had took the kid with her when the school asked her to take the kid with them. Existed, okay, and then she had the text where she told him don't get caught when the teacher found him trying to order bullets on the internet. She said don't get caught, and they laughed about it. Okay,
so they knew he was in danger.
And the thing about the rest of these other cases that have taken place over the years, I'm pretty sure the parents had some knowledge of what their kid was capable of doing, what they were going to do. They just didn't get caught up in it because the parent was able to wiggle their way out of it. Oh, the kid broke into my gun case or something like that.
Kids will be kids.
And if you listen to those lawyers doing the arraignment of the day, those lawyers, the lawyers really sound stupid with the excuses they were coming up for these parents. Oh, they weren't going to do this, or we got the time mixed up, a whole lot of this and that. If those parents went to the bank the day before and withdrew $4,000, if these parents could have gotten out of the country, drove over to Canada, they would have been gone. Simple as that.
Left their child behind.
Yeah, they didn't care. They were you on your own now.
Yeah,
because basically what they did is they sacrificed their son.
Yeah.
When you look, they sacrificed their son and went on the run.
Mm-hmm.
We have another instance. I can't remember what state it was in, where parents of an underage child, I want to say this child was in elementary school. I don't think he was that old. Somehow managed to get into their lockbox and bring a gun to school for show and tell. And other students were like, what the hell is this? That's not cool. And a little girl told somebody in the school, and one of the teachers in the school got the gun. It was a loaded gun on top of that. And from what I read, they weren't going to prosecute or hold the parents accountable because nobody was shot. The child didn't have any intention of shooting anybody at school. He just brought the gun to school for shits and giggles. And I'm like, but wait a minute. Now this is like complete negligence. How does a child less than 10 years old break into a lockbox
to get
the gun? How did they even know where it was to get into it? But
because the parents told them or made them aware of what was in that
was a rhetorical question.
And they are responsible.
Yeah,
they are liable whether you shot someone or not. Because there are laws, you can't bring firearms on campus.
I think the minute you are found to be an irresponsible gun owner, you should lose your permit to have a gun, especially when minors are involved. That would be nice.
Some states you don't need a permit in, so that's not affecting the parents. That's not hurting the parents not to have a gun, to keep them from getting a gun. Because depending on what state they're in, they might not even need a permit to have a gun in the house.
Right, because here you don't need it. So what would you do to the parents? That's why I said you need to give them jail time.
But wait a minute, no. So what? You don't need a permit.
If they can't remit to a fee or a charge monetarily,
no, you can still charge them. You can still charge. Look, if you don't need a permit to have alcohol in your house. But if your child gets blitzed drunk or alcohol poisoning, the parents could be held up on negligence, gross negligence, and the contributing of delinquency of a minor. Why can't the same approach be taken with guns? You let your child who doesn't have a driver's license drive your car and run into the side of somebody's house. You're responsible. They didn't have a permit to drive. So why can't the same approach be taken with guns?
But let me tell you something.
It's just the legislature that's put in place.
Yeah, these parents are going to get off, okay? Because
jury.
Yeah, depending on the jury that you have, okay? Depending on the jury, it's all up to the jury. They're not going to fight they're not going to find anybody guilty going and because of their gun rights, because of Second Amendment gun rights. Okay, because if you hold these parents liable and find them guilty, you're going to have to go back and work on these gun laws. Okay, you don't have no choice but
I
to
have
do
an
it.
argument for that though, because if you want to argue that you are pro Second Amendment and that you as a gun owner are a responsible gun owner, you may not want us to pass common sense gun legislation, but you want to make the claim that you are an American, and you have a right to a gun and you are a responsible gun owner, then it's in your best interest to make sure that all people who own guns legally follow that same thought. And if you don't hold those poor actors in your own community accountable, then you are more likely to find yourself in a situation where we get a government in House and Senate, to override the NRA and override the lobbyists, to institute the very gun legislations that you have been fighting against. You want to protect this right? Then protect the right and hold those people who don't carry that right responsibly accountable.
But Sherry Ann, your argument doesn't hold in the water. Because, and this is why I'm gonna say that. Go back and look at all the previous killings we've had, okay? And how the parents of these kids have no, not the parents, but the gun laws. Nothing has been done to change
Excuse
the
me.
gun laws. The gun laws should have been changed back with Sandy Hook, okay?
Or
But they
Columbine.
weren't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Columbine. They weren't, okay? They weren't because the first thing a gun enthusiast says, or some Second Amendment nut says, the first thing they say, it's not the law, it's the person, okay? The person carried out the crime, okay? That's
Right,
what
but the sensible
that
gun laws we're talking about are addressing people.
they don't.
Background checks on people. You don't do a
They're
background
not
check
going
on
to
a
do it.
gun.
They're
You
not going
know,
to do it.
mental health of the individual, not the gun.
They're not going to
So
do
even
it.
their argument doesn't hold
They're
water.
not going to do it because the way the courts are stacked right now, your federal district courts are stacked right now because of the previous nut that was in office. These judges will do everything that benefits the people that they will put in to protect. Okay, it's just like I'll use one instance. It's like the district court judge in Georgia, I believe it who was an orange head appointee. What they did, they
We really
threw
did.
down throughout Biden's mask mandate today. Okay, so like I said, you find that the courts are going to favor these Second Amendment enthusiasts. Okay, and that's the whole problem. No matter what the court decides, I mean, what the legislature may decide to do, the court's going to always play a role in. Okay, even if they push it up to the Supreme Court, we don't have the people that we need to bounce these laws back and say, look, the law is the law.
No, I hear you. I hear you. And it's just another example of how sick this country is. Bass backwards and sick. If you
How
want
sick they
people to
are.
fear gun violence, if you want people to have a reasonable respect for guns and gun ownership, if you want people to support or gain more support for the Second Amendment, then it behooves you to hold bad actors accountable. It's really not rocket science. We know they won't do it. That's not going to prevent me from saying it. It should be done, period. You know, I mean, if that's the case, then why do we hold bad doctors accountable? You know, so they killed somebody on the
There
operating
has to
table.
be
You know,
somebody
those
has to take responsibility. Somebody has to take responsibility. I mean, we can't continue to tell these parents who have lost their children in a schoolhouse, in a classroom, when we have sent them to this classroom to learn, to to grow up and learn. You have to be able to tell these parents something, and it's
unfortunately,
happening more and more.
schools aren't teaching kids coping mechanisms. They're not teaching them
No,
social skills. You know, it's like Lord of the Flies from 8 to 3, and you know you're on your own. It's insanity. And we're devolving and we're watching it, and it's incredibly sad and frightening and disappointing.
Well,
That
the thing you have to get to realize, and Sharon, you too young to realize this. I think Tony can recognize and realize
thank
this.
Reginald.
He called you
when,
old, Tony. Right?
when we
I
were in
heard
school,
that.
when we were in school before integration came along, the schools were segregated. The teachers would smack you around if you even act like you were going to do something stupid or you did something stupid.
Yeah.
Okay, because
That
that's a
corporal
concern they
punishment.
had for you. Okay, they
I
would
got a
smack
couple
you
of
around.
whoopings, but
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
laughed at the teachers, so it didn't
yeah.
last very long.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
see,
didn't. When we were coming along, you didn't laugh at the teachers because
no,
they're gonna beat you down. Then they're gonna send a note home to your parents. Then you gonna get
that
beat
they
down
do.
again. Okay,
Hmm.
they
Mhm.
cared. Okay, even though they were beating you down, it was a beat down of care. Okay, that doesn't
Yeah,
happen in schools no more because the teachers, like you said, the teachers are coming in fearful already. You look at the inner city schools, the teachers are already scared when they go in there. They want to learn. They want to give these kids the opportunity, but then at the same time, if a kid jumps up in the room and cusses them out, what are they going to do? They're going to take the cussing out because if they say something, the kid probably going to wait for them after school and beat them up.
yeah. Because you
Well,
know what? I'm glad
I
you said that though. I don't know if my mom sent me this video. I can't remember who sent it to me. Young girl, must have been high school. She's in the classroom. I guess she doesn't agree with whatever the teacher is telling her. The teacher tells her to sit down. She's still up at the teacher's desk. She's telling her to sit down. She's telling her, trying to give her instruction. Finally, she picks up picks up the telephone that's on the teacher's desk, calls her mom, and says, "Mom, this teacher is doing this, this, and this." And only by what her response was, you could tell on the other end that the parent must have asked her, what color is she? And she said, she's black. And then that gave her even more, of that, to still keep in with this teacher. There is, now, if this wasn't a time when, like Reggie was referring, of us coming up, that teacher would have snatched that little girl, pulled her in the hall, and wore her ass out.
Mm-hmm.
Simply that. She
yeah,
wouldn't have gone to the principal's office, nothing. She would have worn her out right there in that hallway.
but people are too crazy now to allow that. I'm sorry, people
Because
have
we have
lost their minds. If a
because
teacher
we have
were to beat
taken
on
so
my
many
child,
different things out of the schools.
Yeah, we
look,
have respect. We have respect for the teacher. We have
I
respect.
am not denying that,
Our
but
parents taught us
God
that.
help a teacher that raised a hand against my child. You send them home, and I'll beat the crap out of them. Look at how many teachers are insane in the school system right now. How many teachers are racist in the school system right now, or misogynistic? And look at all of the instances where we've
In-
seen, the police called in school manhandling little
Integration.
girls. Sorry.
Integration. How many times do you see a black teacher on TV for dating a ninth grader? Okay. How many times do you see that on TV? Okay. How many times do you see anything that involves a black teacher? If you see a black teacher on TV, it's because they jacked up the kid. Okay, and that's far and
Yeah.
few between.
Yeah.
Now, I know here in this area years ago we had an instance where the teachers just said, "Look, I done had enough of it," and told it and beat that kid's butt. Okay, they went to court, but the charges was dropped because, like they said, the kid was out of line, and the teacher had to do something to protect themselves. Okay,
Mhm.
you
Yeah, no,
have
if you're
white
protecting yourself, that's different. That's a
yeah,
whole
you have
nother
white teachers
scenario.
out there molesting kids, dating kids, filming kids, doing everything else they can with kids. Okay, you don't find that from black teachers.
You
Okay,
don't.
you
You
don't
don't.
see that.
Yeah.
You don't see that. So the thing about it, certain changes that we made in society to attempt to make us equal, you know, uh, haven't worked. But like I said,
No.
you got little Johnny, whose parents are racist, Second Amendment lovers, and they out there scratching their head and getting bullied at school, and the only thing they know is to pick up a gun because they've been around guns all their lives. they think guns solve the problem. Okay, yes, we do have our
Mhm.
inherited problems in the inner city. Okay, I'm not I'm not going to dismiss that. Okay, but in the white dysfunctional family, you have little Johnny running around there and pulling his hair out every night. Smoking cigarettes in the bathroom. You know, acting stupid. Okay,
Yeah.
and this is what happens.
Oh, well, we did mention that a little bit earlier in the show before you joined. We acknowledged the violence in our own communities in Atlanta and Chicago and places like that. But the end result might be the same in that the the mindset that says the gun is the solution, but how they got there are completely different
Mhm.
issues and have to be
Mhm.
approached
Mhm.
differently. But my concern right now is
Mhm.
if we do start a
Mhm.
new trend of holding parents accountable, as we see with all new legislation, how will that be used as a stick against the communities of color? In light of the fact that we have seen, and there is statistical data and proof, that more white children turn out to be mass shooters than black children. You don't see the metal detectors in white schools in middle America. You don't see the police
Right.
officers walking the
And here,
halls like you
James,
do in
yeah,
the
but
cities.
James said it best. Say you got two just different justice systems, one for the poor and one for the white entitled. He said it best. That's what's going to happen.
So just like with the stand your ground law, that on the face of it seems like a good idea, but has been used against us to justify our murder.
Mhm.
And when we've attempted to use stand your ground, it doesn't work. Even if somebody doesn't die, like that woman who was sentenced to 20 years in jail for shooting a warning shot against her abusive husband. She didn't shoot him,
Right.
but that
Right.
was enough to put her in jail. Meanwhile, you have somebody who uses stand your ground to shoot somebody because the car radio was too loud. So again, we're going to
Right.
see a change in legislation, but we're going to have to be very mindful of how it is implemented. Because you never heard
Sad.
about stop and frisk in middle America with meth heads, right? But
No. No.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm going to duck out for your last 15 minutes.
No,
Why?
you're gonna
You're going to have
stay.
to come right back in the last
Yeah,
5 to
you
talk
might
about
well stay
tomorrow's
here now.
show.
You might well stay here, But
I let
it's
Richard
sad.
talk me into this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it is.
sad the way what's
There's
going on. I mean, yes, the parents need to be held. In this case, I hope to God these parents are found guilty. But then like I
I
said, if
think
you
that
look at
they
the
will.
arraignment, the father was up there laughing and and really not taking what the judge was saying seriously. You
He was
know.
laughing during the arraignment.
Yeah, he was
Yeah,
smiling, shaking his head,
but I
throwing his eyes back. He wasn't
yeah,
taking it serious enough, because he
but
knows in
see,
his little mind that he might get off.
Because he's protected by
but
MAGA.
I don't think they will. I really honestly don't think
I
they
don't
will.
know.
They'll get a
The
I mean,
slap on
reason
the
why,
wrist.
mhm.
because they don't want to hold the school officials accountable.
But you can't hold
Because the
the
school
school
officials
officials. Yeah, but you can't
because
hold the school officials.
the school officials, just like they would have done a little black child, they would have called the cops. And that's how they can hold the school officials accountable. But in order
But
to keep them away from that and being responsible for that, they're going to have to charge the parents. Because again, that district attorney has to find someone to put this on for the sake of the loss of those children. She's
Well,
got to put it on somebody.
the district attorney
They've
said
got
that
to.
the Crumleys committed egregious acts from buying a gun on Black Friday and making it available to their son to resisting his removal from school when they were summoned a few hours before the shooting. Um, but when the police arrived, let's see, it concluded no charges would be brought against the child. Yeah, no, that was a different one. But yeah, no, I mean, the prosecutor is going to try. Whether they succeed or not is another story. But
this
look, we've seen it
Weighing
again. They
in.
don't care about their own communities, right?
yeah.
The gun laws didn't change when Columbine happened. That was all a bunch of white
No,
children. God bless their souls. It didn't
no.
happen after Sandy Hook. It didn't happen after the Las Vegas shooting. It's not going to happen now. They don't complain about right on right crime. They begrudge us our notion that Black Lives Matter and the fight that we're doing to implement change in the police force, change that would positively affect all Americans and not just our community. They never speak up about violence done by their own in their own community. So for that reason, I don't think anything is going to change.
Yeah. The school did everything they should have done. Could have done more? They probably could, but even if they called the police wouldn't have done anything because they ain't have nothing there. The police would have probably made the parents take the kid home with them. But the teacher saw the kid was in the room drawing a picture, drew a picture of a shooting, kid bleeding and everything. Teacher saw him on his phone trying to order bullets and all this kind of stuff.
I disagree with that. If the police came and
No,
saw that drawing and heard about ordering bullets, they would have had just cause to check his book bag.
they would have.
Yeah,
No, they
they would
probably
have.
wouldn't have because if I was a police officer, I probably would have. I probably wouldn't gotten that far. I know I would have made them take the kid home with them. Okay,
In light of all of the
because
shootings that have been in schools, with the
but the thing
picture,
about it,
I think
the
they
thing
would have
about
took
it,
that kid in.
it was it would have been a judgment call. Okay, it would have been it would have been a thing. The kid would have left the campus. Okay, because the police officer said, "Ma'am, or sir, I think you need to take this young man home. He needs to get some counseling or something like that." That
But that would
you know,
have been better than loss of life.
yeah. But the
It would
thing
have been
is,
better than loss of life. And
you
they
say the
did not
police.
follow through to do that.
You say the police officers. The school had the same responsibility. They could have checked the book bag. Okay, they didn't. They didn't. They just
would
saw
they have been
kids that they
covered
thought was
under,
lost.
would the school have been covered under reasonable suspicion, or does that only cover police officers?
In the
Because I
I
school,
know
think you
that
have to have
with the
reasonable
drawing and the
suspicion in that
ordering,
area too, though.
with the
yeah,
drawing and the order and the looking online for bullets would have been enough to allow the
That would
police
have been
officers
enough.
to check his locker and his book bag. I
it
don't
was
know if
enough
it
for the
gives the
principal
school
to.
the same
Yeah,
authority.
it was enough for the principal to do that. But I think they were trying to get the kid out of school because they saw a problem and they felt like the kid had a problem. That's why they wanted the mother to take the kid with them. They identified the issue that your son done lost his mind. Okay, something is wrong here. But the parents played it off. The mother played it off. They had like, well, we got to go play bingo this afternoon. So look, you all keep him. That's you all's job. He's yours to 3 o'clock, and that's how they approached it.
It's just insane. I
Mm.
mean, you've got some
But see,
schools out here where
the
you have
thing
to have a
is,
clear book bag. I can't
but
with these middle
they had
America.
intentions on leaving that boy to do what he was going to do. I'm telling you, these folks knew. They
I
knew.
don't.
Look, all of a sudden there's a school shooting, right? The parents had just left that school. This boy goes in and he kills how many babies? 4,
Mhm.
injured 8. They're already in their car out of town.
Mm-hmm.
The boy gets a text from his mother. Don't do it. That
Mhm.
sounds like all of a sudden now she's got reverse regret. She's got regret now. Because now we're on the run. We should have taken you with us. But we are sacrificing you. But now you say don't do it? They were already out of town.
Mm-hmm.
But the don't do it was after
They
the fact,
knew what
way
this
after
boy
the
was
fact.
going to do. No.
The
They knew
don't
what
do
this
it was after
boy
the
was.
fact because they were trying to cover their butts. All they were doing was trying to cover their
They were
their
out
tracks.
of town. They were
Yeah,
out of town.
and then the father calls in after the shooting is announced that he checked to see and his gun is at home and he thinks his son is the shooter.
Exactly. He knew. They both knew. This is why I think that, yes, there will be some consequences for these folks. I really honestly do. And that's because they cannot put it on the school because the school handed the responsibility back to the parent and say, look, you got to get this boy out of here. And the parent says, nah, we're going to go ahead and get in our car and we're going to leave him with you, send him back to class. They
Look, man,
knew.
as far as I'm concerned, though, the school got by the skin of their teeth with that last minute effort to recognize issues with this child. If he was being bullied in school, the teachers knew, so a counselor knew, somebody knew. So it's a little bit of a day late and a dollar short, and it may be just enough to protect the school.
Look,
If they hadn't done at least that.
This is a question. Is it the school's responsibility to babysit and monitor and figure out what these kids are doing and what they're not doing? Okay. I think
you see that I'm sorry, no, they have guidance counselors.
Yeah, but it's not, they can't identify every knucklehead crackpot kid that comes into school with problems.
No, I'm not saying that.
Because if we started holding the schools responsible for everything that these kids do, I think the school systems, you might as well just close schools down
I'm not saying the school is responsible for the shooting, but what I am saying is that for those hours that a child is in a school, the school is responsible. I think we can all agree about that. The school is responsible for that child's well-being and education. And if they know that a child is being bullied on the school premises, then yes, it is the school's responsibility to do something about it.
But they don't.
Not let children be. I know they don't, and that's a problem.
You look at the number of kids. You look at the number of black kids who have committed suicide because they were getting bullied at school. Okay, their parents went and talked to the counselors. They went constantly to try to get this stuff straightened up. The
and they should be sued.
We'll take care of.
Or the LGBTQ kids that commit suicide.
Yeah, they don't get. They sue the schools, try to sue the schools, and the suits, they lose the suits. Okay, so. I mean, how far do we carry the responsibility over to the school? Okay, I mean, like I said, the school system has just changed so much. Okay, when Tony and I were coming along, you probably could have sued the schools and win because it was an understanding that you looking after my kid for the day. Okay, it was an understanding in the black community. Okay, but you gotta understand integration changed the mindset of the teachers in the schools because they thought they were hurting us, black students. Okay, that's what they thought. Mm-hmm. But little Johnny from over in the white neighborhood, who's entitled to everything, he's the problem. Okay.
Let me just say this: it is absolutely mind-boggling to me that in a country that is known to be ridiculously litigious, will allow nuisance lawsuits like hot coffee or my apple pie is made with potato and not apple, so I'm going to sue you, right? That you can sue over that kind of bullshit
and win,
but you can't sue over somebody who has the ability to mold the mind of your children, over somebody that is supposed to protect and educate your children for the 8 hours of the day that they're in school. That you cannot hold that school accountable for bullying and harassment, for misogyny, for sexual harassment. It boggles my mind. There is something rotten to the core.
But the problem, okay, let me get in here. So the problem is that when we were coming up, and my mother could attest to this, and my mother basically, she had a fit when this one teacher put her hands on me. She had dug her nails into my arm because I wouldn't make an apron or something in home ec. But the problem is that parents have pushed so hard for their children to not be disciplined on school grounds. This is why we have this issue. It used to be where a parent sends their children to school. They are out of sight of the parent. The parent has to work. The teacher takes responsibility. The principal is there to back that responsibility if that child cuts up. But we have gotten to be so soft and allow our children to be so soft where we can't discipline in any form. Because back then it was called being a village. Don't nobody know nothing about being a village.
I get that. But why is it that we need so much discipline in this country? Again, it just takes me back to something being rotten deep in the psyche of people being raised here. When you can go to other countries where the schools don't have this problem, where they have guns, that's not the issue, right? They have their version of the Second Amendment. That's not the issue. They don't spank. There's no corporal punishment in school, but the children grow up with coping mechanisms and they're able to have relatively mature discussions to work out their issues. We're still acting like we're the Wild
they
West
have
here.
mature. That's because other countries have mature parents.
Yeah.
They
To
have
that-
a value system. They have
Yeah.
morality.
So
These
how do we
people
fix
here have
that?
lost their damn minds.
How do we fix that? Do we
You
blow it
don't.
up
You
and start
can't.
from scratch?
You can't fix it because you got Shaniqua now gonna come down to the school with one of those old shower caps on her head, wearing her pajama pants, popping gum, gonna
Bonnet.
get up in the principal's face and say, "If you let that teacher hit my kid again, I'm gonna beat the crap out of the teacher, or even worse." Okay?
Well, in all fairness, you do have Karens coming to the school and doing that as well.
Yeah, they do the same thing. So what do you do? What do you do as a teacher? You're not getting paid enough money. You're not getting paid enough. You don't be given enough time to do your planning. So what you're gonna do? You're gonna come in there and do your bare minimum, teach that kid the ABCs 1, 2, 3, and get the heck out of school. And if that kid passes, good. If that kid doesn't pass, so what? And that's what it's all about, okay? Because like I said, I still remember the last time I got my last whooping in the 8th grade. Teacher left the classroom, told us, don't get out your seat, sit down. And this
so you deserved it?
Look, this teacher was
Did you deserve it?
an NFL football player, and he walked around to the building because he was going to another building, looked in the window, and me and this other guy was standing there. He said, "Kearney, you and that guy, y'all stay right there." He came in the room, pulled out his little paddle, told us to touch our toes, popped us. I bet we sit down from then on, okay? But it wasn't done to try to kill us. It was done out of discipline and for us to respect what the teacher says, okay? And I didn't say nothing to my parents when I got home about it because I knew if I said something to my parents, I would have got another
spank. Get it again. Exactly.
Okay? And we didn't look at it as being child abuse or being the beating. We looked at it as you didn't respect the authority, okay? And that was just the bottom line of it. As soon as we went into the white schools and got integrated, hey, if a white teacher touched a black kid, it was on and popping like popcorn, okay? And that's how. After that, it's been downhill since then, okay?
Hey, look, all I'm going to say is white, black, it doesn't matter. There is something rotten to the core here in the psyche of this country that takes us to a place where, regardless of how old you are, you go to violence as the answer. And
you grew up too easy, Sharon. You just grew up too easy.
You
okay?
don't know what I grew up with. And let me tell you, this age ain't any easier, okay?
You did grow up easy.
You grew up too easy. I wish you grew up with me. Sharon been running that school.
I would have kicked your ass back in the day, please. I had my, I keep my stories close to the vest, Reggie.
Yeah. She wants to let she was a hard, like she was walking around school all hard and everything.
No, I didn't need to walk around hard. I didn't need to walk. I wanted people to underestimate me, which they did.
Oh my God.
And they learned. But on a lighter note.
Oh, geez. Whew. Well, that 15 extra minutes went. Mom's laughing at you. Well, that went by quick. Good spirited conversation, you guys.
Yeah.
Last words.
Hey, it's not over with yet. It's gonna happen again and again and again and again.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Yeah. But there's so many different things to we've got to clean up. It's the parenting. Do these teachers really care? Gun laws. All of these things are intermingled in this problem. Discipline. It's a lot to fix, but I have to agree with you, Reggie. It's going to happen again, unfortunately, and there are going to be more babies that lose their lives because of I think it's just a lack of caring, and it's all about politics. It's a lack of difference.
Yeah,
politics.
That's the cost of having our Second Amendment. Until and just my last comment on the subject is. It always amazes me, and it just speaks to how protected the entitled are, because they're the ones who are making legislation about the rights of racists. They're the ones who are fighting against common sense legislation for guns.
Thanks, Mom.
They're, so clearly they are not subject to any of this, because God help you, if one of their kids was shot in the school or one of their kids was raped, their position on these laws would be very differently, knock on wood. And I'm not advocating that something happened to them, but, again, it just serves to remind me of how sheltered and protected these are, and how far removed they are from
Right.
our everyday
You're right.
experience.
You're right. You're right. Wow. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in tonight to Real World News TV with Jerry Ann Tappan and Mr. Reggie Kearney. They let me sit in because Reggie was running late. Then they made me stay. Then they made me talk. All of that. So
You forgot about your sinuses.
yeah. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. You can make sure to catch Real World News TV right here every Tuesday night here on Facebook. Just go to Real World News TV and hit that live link, and you'll be right on with us. The show always starts at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 Central, and 8:30 on the East Coast. Make sure that you head on over to the website as well, hottopicstalkradio.com. Catch up on any past shows, or come right back here to Facebook and look up Real World News TV and hit the video link. Tomorrow night, we're getting a little serious tomorrow night.
No such thing. I don't believe it. Go ahead.
No, we really are. We really are.
Okay.
So, the issues of Roe versus Wade has been playing in me and Yvonne's head. So we're going to tackle that tomorrow night. Normally we kind of keep it light, but I have no doubt that towards the end of the show it's going to go off the rails. But tomorrow night we are going to be delving into the issues of Roe versus Wade, the threatening of how it can be overturned, and what that means to every woman and even men when our rights are impeded by government. When it has to do with our bodies. So tomorrow night on Hot Topics Talk Radio with me and Yvonne Baker, My Body, My Right. The show starts tomorrow night at 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 9 Central, 10 o'clock on the East Coast. Make sure that you type in Hot Topics Talk Radio here on Facebook, and you can also see us on YouTube. So we will see you tomorrow night. With that being said, we wish you well, and I'll see you on the other side tomorrow night on Hot Topics.
Be safe, everyone. Yeah.
Good night. Peace.
Good night.
What was that?
That's what happens when you're 30 minutes late. You got all that energy.
Right. Exactly. Good night, everybody.
I made it, okay?
Good night. You did. Good boy.
Good night.
Good boy.